been in this industry for roughly 10 years now. And when 10 years ago I was confronted with this technology, it was called rapid manufacturing. And neither it was. It wasn't rapid and it wasn't really manufacturing. And one of the interesting examples I had in this first project that I did, called Custom Fit, was let's make a grip for a tennis racket. Now I don't know who of you plays tennis. I do a little. And it didn't get to me because when I play a ground stroke forehand, I have another grip than a ground stroke backhand. And when I smash, I again hold my racket in a different manner. I'm not a double-hander, but double-handers definitely have a different forehand and backhand. So I didn't really get the idea, so I asked to the party in that project who did it, well, why do you want to do it? He said, well, because we can make it. The second thing was, well, you know, what is the price going to be of this grip? Because when I go to a tennis store and buy a replacement grip, it's about 3 quid, 4 or 5 euros. Well, 15 to 20. And I said, well, can you then assure me that I become a better tennis player? That I have a more precise hit, or that I never get a tennis elbow, or no injuries? And basically they could not give me any guarantee. And that's the kind of angle that I've had to this industry. I mean, I do love it. I do really think there's some benefits in it. But you have to find the real benefit, and then people are willing to pay for it. And the moment you have a benefit and people are willing to pay for it, then you can really make a business out of it. And that's what this talk is going to be about. How can you actually find the benefits and then make a business out of it? I'm with Berenschot. Berenschot is a Dutch consulting firm primarily active in the Netherlands and Belgium, also somewhat internationally. And we've been part of a number of larger initiatives in this industry. We're also now consulting a number of individual companies and some regions on how to go about with 3D printing. So for 10 years we've really gained some experience. This moment in time we're part of the Mensis project. I'll get to that project a little later on in this speech. The first thing when you talk about making a business, you should know, are you in the consumer business or are you in the industrial or business-to-business cycle? And for instance, when you look at the consumer business, that also already is not just one business. When we look at this moment in time, you see the maker scene, and in the maker scene you see a lot of 3D printing going on, primarily on somewhat cheaper machines. But that's a completely different environment than a real consumer environment. Over the past 4 weeks, we did a small research in our office. We had small clips that we produce ourselves on our leapfrog machine, 7 cents a clip, to basically make sure that one of our presentation modules still works and the supplier didn't supply anymore. We went out with the design to 25 platforms and just asked them to quote, can you make me 5 clips? It ranged from €3.50 to 165 euros. Then we went one step further and we said, well, no, let's order some. So we ordered 7 clips. We paid 50 euros for 5 clips that we could make at home for 7 cents, but still we wanted to have the experience. And let's say the quality was very different from the various suppliers that we had. And not only the quality of the clips, but also the quality of the communication. The certainty that you had when you went online that they would actually perform according to your request. And what we basically found is that when you are in the maker scene and you're willing to invest time and do your own research, then most of these sites work. I say most of them, some don't. But when you are a real consumer, someone who actually doesn't really know a lot, you found a file on Thingiverse and you just want to have it printed, then most of the sites you're lost. You cannot actually go to the button that says print and you get it. And when we want to grow this business, especially when you want to go to the consumer side, you should be able to actually work with these kind of companies in that manner. When you look at the business-to-business side, also there the first instance always was, can we print parts? And I think also when you look at this show, but also when you talk to people in the industry, perhaps in that part of the industry it's not so much about building parts or end products, but the real business is in the pre-production process. Can we speed up the pre-production process? Can we make tooling? Can we actually make sure that we are quicker to market? And by being quicker to market, we can basically make money. Another interesting aspect is, are you going to go out with a generic proposition? or are you going to come out with an industry-specific proposition? The past years, most of the propositions, most of the companies in this market were offering a very generic offer. When you go to service bureaus now still, they have a very generic offer. They basically say, we have machines, we have technology, you have to provide the industry knowledge and the industry expertise, and perhaps together we can get somewhere. And my feeling is that in the coming years, you will see a lot of shops popping up on the service bureau side, production side, but also in the information side, we'll get to that later, that are industry specific. Because I don't think it's affordable for many companies to be a accredited player in the aerospace and in medical and in dental and in automotive and go on and go on. So I think there is a great need, if you want to grow this market, to become more industry specific. And the third element that we have seen over the past years is that companies basically do everything. When you look like a company like Materialise, it's a great company. And they're willing to actually take people in, tell them about what this industry is all about, tell them about what the technology is all about, really want to help you. And on the other hand, they of course have their software, they have their enabling services, and they also have roughly, 150 machines in Louvain where they produce parts. They do everything. But the question is, when this industry grows, is it possible for companies like that to do everything? And are they still, for instance, going to do the technology or the knowledge sharing part when that actually costs money, costs time and money? Now what you see is when you take these three axes, you can quite easily make some kind of a cube model of it. And although it may seem quite simple, the interesting thing of the cube is that every cell in the cube, and of course you can draw the axis a little bit different if you want to, every cell in this cube has its own success factors. And it's a different market if you are selling end products to a consumer market than if you're providing a service to business to business. There are other demands in the market that you really have to respond to. And that's a bit what I'm going to talk about over here. I did a small research also over here, by the way. I asked all these standholders, or almost all of them, what do you think? How many households will own a printer 3 years from now? The first observation I had is most of them said, huh? What do you mean? I said, well, you want to sell this. How did you scope your market? How big is your market? Well, most of them actually didn't. But then you get into a discussion. And well, the word here, the average word is between 0 to 5% of the households are going to own a printer. And I think that's on the high side. If you want to have my opinion, I think that's on the high side. Then when you look at design bureaus, architects, when you look at that market, how many of them will have their own printer instead of going to a service bureau? The word out here, well, roughly 25%. I would say that that is also what I would say. And then when you look at industry, also does the industry, how many companies will in the industry field will really have their own printer instead of going to a service bureau, instead of going outside to get resources in. Roughly 40%. And roughly 50% of the schools, they say, in 3 years will have a printer. Trying to carve out where your market is. And when you look at the hype in the press, in the newspapers, this is a different percentage. I mean, the hype in the newspapers is on the commercial side, on the consumer side. I do feel in the industry that the real growth will be in the industrial side and not so much on the consumer side. Now just let's go over some examples that I have in this cube to give you a feel for how this works. This is a Dutch company, it's called HEMA. HEMA is a retailer and they came with an ad earlier this year. You can buy your iPhone cover or you can buy a small bracelet. Both are $19.95 and you can get them from HEMA. The interesting thing is when you're in the market, you say, what? $19.95 for an iPhone and I have to wait 3 months? Let's go to Shapeways and order one and get one in 7 days for €9. Or your bracelet, roughly the same thing. You have to bear in mind, the people buying at HEMA are not the makers. They're not in the know. They need the trust of this big brand, at least in the Netherlands, big brand HEMA, that they know of being a trustworthy company that will deliver. So HEMA can afford to make it more expensive, a little bit, can have a longer delivery time to make sure that the products that they get are actually good, because they had quite some quality control on it, and then sell to a very specific end of the market. And the people in that end of the market, the consumers who actually order products, they want ease of operation. So when you go to the website, it should be really simple, no mistakes made. They look for engagement. It should be a fun thing to do on the website, not finding out things, but doing nice things. And the payment should be quite clear, and it should be completely okay, and it should be ascertained that you're not putting your money into some kind of a company that you cannot trust. Those are elements that I know that a lot of companies in this industry have not even thought of. They think of material quality. They think of production quality. All very true and very good. But when you want to cater to this consumer market, those are not the things that the consumers are actually going to look at. They're going to look at its ease of operation, trustworthiness, and what have you. Another interesting thing is that I've placed HEMA here at the productions of part and tooling part. HEMA is not producing, but for the public, they're viewed as the producer of this product. This is also an interesting element when you look at, for instance, a company called Shapeways. I think everyone knows Shapeways. When you order something at Shapeways, you get a Shapeways box, you get a Shapeways star on it. When you ask Shapeways, are you the producer? They say, well, no, we're just a platform. We're offering services so that someone else can use our machines. We're a service provider. But the question is, how does the consumer look at that organization? Do they see it as a producer or do they see it as a service provider? And you should, of course, be in line with the success factors and demands of the customers in the way they perceive you. Not so much the way you want to be perceived, but the way your customers are perceiving you. Another interesting element in this whole part of a generic production and of parts and tooling, when you look at the tooling side of it, I'm doing a research now with a logistics union in Belgium, the Flemish industry of logistics. And we're looking at using 3D printing for maintenance and repair. So basically, building spare parts through 3D printing. What we found out is that there are different angles to look at that. The most interesting one, but also the hardest one to actually earn money with, is what you could call rationalization. Logistics companies often have large distribution centers with a lot of parts on store, and those parts are just laying there. I mean, we work with companies in that project that say that out of the unique product numbers, 50% is just laying, catching dust for 2 years in a row. Of course, the large volumes are not in those parts, but in the parts that are the fast runners. But can't we get to a situation that those parts that basically we never sell, we can have on file as a 3D file instead of having them really in a cupboard as a physical product? Looks like an interesting idea. We call it rationalization. But you still need to overcome quite some hurdles to make that an economically viable option. You've got to design it. You've got to make sure that in your administration the new product is administered. You've got to make sure that your clients and your partners know of this new product. Altogether, it means that you have to put quite some effort in going from a physical part to a digital part. And then you still need some volume. So it's not a real easy thing to do. Another element we saw, and that is an interesting one, is what we call new business development. These same companies also sometimes have parts to deliver that are out of stock and have a delivery time of 6 months. Because the producer in the Far East or any other country says, well, you know, I just can't stop all my machines from running and make these 2 parts for you. So you're in queue. You're somewhere 6 months down the road. Now, at that moment in time, you should actually not look at the price of the product and the price of designing and printing a 3D printed part, but you should look at what are the opportunity costs. What are my losses if I cannot produce for 6 months? Because that's the actual calculation. You cannot produce, or you have perhaps a 3D printed part which is not the same quality. Perhaps it breaks 4 times, so you have to print 4 parts. But when you look at it in that manner, then you really can make a business case. So when you look at parts and tooling, there are some interesting business cases to make. Another interesting example, I talked about Shapeways. Shapeways is a very generic platform. Basically, everyone can set up shop there. Any industry, any kind of gadgets you want to make. They do not really see a lot of competition from other platforms. They have this advantage that you have on the internet when you're the first one, when you have the most cases on the internet, when you're very often referred to, then automatically when you start your search engine, Shapeways will come up in top because they have the most views, they have the most clicks. Internet works that way. Well, one of the ways to actually go around that is be far more industry specific. Outfit called Jewelry This is really focusing as a service platform to the jewelry industry. They're not producing jewelry and selling it, but they're producing designs, and they're also producing guidelines for jewelers to actually produce them on machines either in-house or in service jewelers next to them. So basically they're enabling small jewelers to make use of this new technology. And they do this from a really complete mindset that the jeweler would also have. So they are really intrinsically interested in this industry. And that's a very important thing if you want to be an industry-specific partner. It's not so much only the technology that you have, but you have to know what are the ways to go about an industry. What are the things that make people in the industry tick? And you really have to spend time and also money in it to do so. And Jewelry This is an example of an industry-focused platform. And I suggest, and I expect that there will be more of these industry-focused platforms coming up in the near future. Another example is this platform I just introduced, the Mensis platform. Together with a bunch of European companies, 12 companies in all, we're trying to build a platform on which you can order a part and be assured that you get exactly the same quality as you would get when you would order it from your current supplier, your current OEM. Companies in this platform are, for instance, GE for aviation, Smith & Nephew for medical, Wisseldent and TwoCare for dental. Those companies know what is required in that industry. And what is interesting is that on this platform, we really want to make a knowledge source, a resource of information, a resource of knowledge about quality, quality control, and quality assurance that helps companies to pose the right questions and order in the correct manner to assure that at the end of the day, you have a quality product delivered to you. And the moment you start thinking about that, the same moment you understand that building a platform like that for aviation is a completely different platform than building a platform like that for dental or for medical. You need other accreditations. You have other suppliers who are accredited and credible in that market. If you would start a generic platform and it would list a number of suppliers that could produce engine parts for an aeroplane, and they are not accredited, they're not known in the market, then the whole platform immediately is disregarded by the aviation industry. So what we found out basically, if you want to do a B2B knowledge and information platform, you immediately have to be very specific, very industry specific. And of course that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort and a lot of money to be a platform like that. Another element in the industry and information arena is education. What we've seen is that although a lot of people over here and a lot of people in the room feel that this market will grow a lot, it will only grow if we have, for instance, enough engineers who actually know how to design for 3D. When you look at the job ads for the past months, roughly 30% of those ads for engineers at this moment requires that you have knowledge or expertise in the field of 3D designing. Well, where can you actually get that education at this moment in time? I know of very little schools who can actually deliver. Swansea did something. I know of some examples in Europe, but not too many. So I think there really is a large demand, and when there's a large demand, there also is a lot of good business to do. A large demand for schools focusing on education for 3D printing to deliver engineers, to deliver people who actually know about how to go about with 3D printing. Last example I want to give in this cube. Company called Layerwise. At this moment in time, 3D Layerwise. It's an interesting company. They're both a service provider and a production company. Roughly 80% of what they at this moment in time produce is end products, so it's not prototyping anymore. But the question I have is, can a company like that, as one large uniform operation, in the future still be at this same quality level? Or should they basically dribble down a bit in this box and be more industry specific? So perhaps we'll get a Layerwise for the aerospace, a Layerwise for medical, and a Layerwise for dental. And I feel that there is merit in that, because I suggest everyone who's here in the room, if you want to enter this market now, or if you want to grow in this market, I think the growth is not only and not so much in the generic approach, But growth is really in the specific approach. Specialize yourself, focus on certain elements in the market, know what the metrics are in those specific niches, and know what the support is that companies or consumers in those niches really want from you. Because you have to cater to those demands, not so much to your generic quality demands, but to the specific demands that are there in those specific niches. This and a number of other things I've written down in a small booklet. We introduce a bit more on the models and also a lot more on the specific success factors that you have in these various cells in the cube. Here are my ideas about how to make business in this 3D business arena. Thank you.